time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge, it's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. So here we go, we're live with Joe. Enjoy the show.
What is up, everybody? Joe Evers, the FenceTech expert, coming to you live from FenceTech 2025 in Salt Lake City. What a show, what a week, and it's only just the beginning. So it seems fitting that the first interview that we're bringing to you guys is Eastern Wholesale, the sponsor of the keynote that we just got out of. What a guy, Van Morris. What a heck of a story.
What an amazing patriot.
Yes.
And then he talked about his upbringing, and he talked about the values he brings, and then how his patriotism was sealed by great leaders in the military.
Right.
And then how he's used that to teach children, help them understand what their role is to be the best versions of themselves. What a way to kick off the conference, right? Yeah,
the message, be the best you can be, coming from Van Morris is like, everyone talks about keynote speakers, and every year they're good. I don't want to say they haven't been good, but every year they get just a little bit better. This year was a lot.
And this is a man challenging us to be the best version of ourselves.
That's right.
He's a pretty darn good version of himself, so he set the bar pretty high.
Right. Well, and he's given us a good lead to follow.
That's right.
As well.
That's right.
So it's fitting that we interview you guys first. So before we get into it, let's introduce yourself, Greg with Eastern Wholesale. Yep. For the folks out there that may not have met you, a brief introduction.
Yeah, so Greg Heisler, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Eastern Wholesale Fence. I've been in the seat now about 3 months.
Okay.
And excited to be leading this talented team and this world-class company.
I tell you what, Eastern's a name that I'm pretty familiar with, but there might be some companies out there, maybe West Coast or Pacific Northwest, that aren't as familiar with Eastern Wholesale.
Sure.
Maybe a brief history of who Eastern is and what they do.
Absolutely. So we are a company that we're in 50 plus years in the industry. Started off in the New York region, originally selling wood. And then we're one of the leaders really in bringing vinyl into the industry, right? And then expanding into chain link and aluminum and just building those product lines. But our company is built off of a service model, right?
Okay.
So we are a distributor at heart, and we really take it to task that we have to be in a position to delight customers, what they need, when they need, how they need it, and sometimes that means we have to get a little creative.
Sure.
The customer needs to get what they need so that they can satisfy their customers. So we've built an organization across 3 manufacturing sites, a distribution center. We're up and down the entire eastern seaboard, and really servicing across the eastern United States.
Well, and so the name's fitting, right? Eastern Wholesale. And that's the company that I've come to know, or I've come to hear about. Now, we're in Missouri, so we're a little bit far west of your guys' service area, but through Sam Williams, I've gotten to know the company. And that's kind of one of your guys' unique selling propositions is your customer service, is your commitment to the customer.
Absolutely, and it's the ability to take a variety of fencing products and get them on the same truck, get them serviced out to the customer within a couple days lead time, sometimes same day if it calls for it.
Sure.
But be able to put that mixture of products that they need, and we're supplying folks directly to their yard, or even, and for a lot of our customers' case, we're taking it and delivering it directly to their job site, to the homeowner, and we're doing it with on time, with notification, and being able to do it a la carte, which a lot of other companies cannot do.
That's not the norm.
Right.
That's not the norm. So, and I think there's a lot of companies that probably find a tremendous amount of value in that, and the fact that, not every contractor has a yard with space available that can take, truckload or partial truckload quantities, but you guys break it down into job lots and allow delivery. The fact that you allow delivery to the job site is something in and of itself, but to your point, a la carte, job lot quantities as well.
Absolutely, and it's important for us in our model is we have to synchronize with our customer, the installer, and make sure that we're delivering the day that they say they're going to be there, the day they have their crew there, so that the homeowner's experience is fantastic, right? Because that's referral business they get,
absolutely,
and that's more business we get. But that's our value add to the market, and that's where we shine.
Well, and it sounds like as a distributor, you've realized that by making your customers the hero, or the installers the heroes, to their customers, now all of a sudden you kind of become a hero to them.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because any good company obviously is going to have a great sales force, and they're
Sure.
out there and they're motivating and they're teaching and they're leading. But one of the real value adds that we have as an organization is those delivery drivers that are at the site. They are our frontline ambassadors. So they are there and they can help solve problems. They can make a job right. They can radio information back to our team. So we have another line of service and accountability there with the person who's showing up, who's unloading the order and being able to service. And again, people can't touch that.
I was going to say, yet another unique, aspect to your guys' business. If you're watching out there, I'm not saying anything about our delivery drivers that may deliver stuff to us, but unique in the fact that it sounds like they're empowered to be, maybe not decision makers, but enable them to solve problems on their own.
Absolutely, and they take their role very seriously. They are the first people we hear back from in terms of any issues with the customer site or how the order was processed or maybe how it was loaded. They are strong advocates for the customer and make sure that we know if there's areas of opportunity. So we value them because they're essential to our business.
Well, and naming them ambassadors is huge because that's really what they're doing. Is they're probably, your guys' customers probably have more interaction with them than they do a lot of the office staff.
Absolutely.
And maybe even their salesperson if they're seeing the driver 2-3 times a week.
That's right.
So one of the things I keep hearing you talk about a lot is communication though as well. Notifications, whether it's with your customers, whether it's through the drivers. Is that something else it sounds like it's something else you guys value pretty highly?
It is because, when you're trying to coordinate, multi-facets of a job, right? So you've got to, purchase the materials. You've got to have the homeowners okay to be there at a certain time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the day the dog gets picked up or groomed or whatever. You can't be there on
Sure.
Thursday, right?
Sure.
You're coordinating all that, and then you have to have a crew available. And we know that if you've got a crew on site, that's money.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got to make sure that the product is there. We're communicating with the customer. We're making sure they know when it's shipping, when it did ship, when it'll be on site, so that we're keeping that, that communication alive so that they can do a great job for their customers.
Guys watching at home, I can't stress enough how important communication is, even not only on the supply side, but also on the contractor side.
Absolutely.
Communication is paramount. And I think if we were to look nationwide and if we were to look into reviews and if we were to listen to customer feedback at the homeowner level, I would bet the majority of the problems start with a lack of communication.
Oh, absolutely. Or the homeowner not realizing that, it's just they're going to put a fence in. No, there's complexity here, right? We've got to do some things in order to make this wonderful product happen. So maybe not understanding well enough and just telling their contract partner, we're going to do this or that, and then all of a sudden the contractor has a problem. Well, we take on those problems. Our customer service team is another line of those heroes within the company. They allow the contractor a chance to say, hey, here's a new wrinkle, here's a new problem, we forgot a post, or this got bent, or whatever else, and allow them to spring into action. Again, realize that service model because they're there to take care of our customers too. So we've got a fantastic staff in customer service.
It sounds like it. Well, not only in customer service, it sounds like you guys just have a tremendous team built kind of from the bottom up is what it sounds like.
When Peter Williams really built this company over the last decades, it was a focus on people that are going to do the right thing, they're going to be exceptional, they're going to take care of the customer. That's the organization that I have the privilege to lead now, and it's exciting.
So it's been that way from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Just the customer-focused mantra.
It has to be, because when you're in last mile distribution, you've got to be a couple things. You got to communicate,
Sure.
You got to be on time, and you got to take really good care of the partners you're in. That's where our success lies.
Well, and that makes sense talking to so many people that have great things to say about Eastern. In this role, I talk to a lot of fence companies, and a lot of them on the East Coast speak very highly of Eastern, and it makes sense now. Right, that it sounds like from the beginning, Peter built a culture before that buzzword was a thing of, hey, the culture we've got here at the company is the customer comes first, and we need to make sure that they have an incredible experience so their customers have an incredible experience.
Absolutely, and last mile distribution is a skill set. We're in a room, we're surrounded by people that have some great products, but not everybody does distribution really well.
Sure.
Right? So that's our job, is to partner with those folks, help them get their products in the market, and again, offer our customers a little bit more optionality.
Absolutely. Now, but you guys aren't only on the last mile, right? You guys don't also do distribution. There's a little bit more to Eastern Wholesale as well.
It's a very long mile. Right? So we're
Sure.
servicing within about 300 miles of each of our manufacturing facilities. So we certainly have tandem drivers that are going out there for an over and back. We're stretching all the way up to Maine, all the way down into northern Florida. So
wow,
and
what an area.
It's amazing. We've got a great logistics team. We've invested money in software to help us be
Sure.
good at that. But it's the ability for us to match what the customer needs. We've got enough volume out there that we can really route trucks where they need to and
That's
get
great.
them there in an efficient way. Again, there's not a whole lot of people on our side of the country that can do that.
Yeah, well, or the country in general. I mean, if they're in their room, right? Like those guys are typically here, but I tell you, from what I've heard, both from the contractors I talked to and the conversation yourself, like it sounds like you guys are, like I said, setting a high priority on just that. You're making the exception, and you're making the
Exception the rule?
There you go.
Okay.
It was almost there. It's been a long week and it's only Wednesday.
I know.
But you guys are making yourself the exception to the rule that it's not just, you can come pick up your materials, and it's not just, well, we can bring them to you, but it sounds like we're going to give you white glove service throughout the whole process.
That's the intention. And it's not like we haven't had our problems.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
We've had a series of events the last, say, 6 months or so, cyber event, new ERP, and there's companies it takes a year for them to recover from either one of those.
Sure.
We're really have come out of that now, about 6 months after the first one of those, so faster than most, very large professional companies do.
Yeah.
And, we're building our way back to the promise in some areas where maybe we weren't as successful. We're putting all those sins behind us to really take the market again this year.
Well, and I think it would be naive to think that as your company grows to the scale you're at now and beyond, that you're not going to have some bumps in the road.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they call them growing pains for a reason. I mean, you
right.
guys are continuing to grow as a company. There's going to be some pains along the way.
But as you grow, you learn, right?
Sure.
One of our team was saying the other night, he tells his young sons in wrestling, you either win or you learn, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
we've had opportunities to learn, and we've learned lessons and been able to capitalize on those that others haven't.
Well, it's that whole saying that fail is first attempt in learning.
That's right.
Right? It's like, hey, so we're growing, we're going to bring in an ERP system that we know is going to change the way, and again, prioritize again the experience of our customers.
Right.
There's going to be some growing pains along the way, but
Absolutely.
knowing that where that's headed is worth the growing pains you're going to go through to get there.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm really honored to be in the role that I'm in, because I get to take this team that has the right mindset and the right culture, and we can navigate through some challenges that we've had, but also apply what I've learned over the course of my career in distribution, logistics, and really upping the experience beyond even what we've historically had capabilities to do.
Sure. Well, and it sounds like, just in what I've heard from Eastern, just from afar, you guys are really prioritizing putting the right people in the right seats. Yourself included, but not only yourself, it's putting those right people in the right seats throughout the company. Absolutely.
It starts with having the right people, the right structure, the right process, and then you can start really driving efficiencies and do the right things for the stakeholders.
Absolutely. Let's pivot a little bit.
Okay.
So that's one part of the conversation is the Eastern Wholesale, but there's another part of this that is private equity.
Right.
And I feel like, one, the conversation is happening a lot in this room right now.
Sure.
Over the last year, just in the industry itself. I feel like there's a negative connotation associated with it, and I think it bears having this conversation. In any group of companies and any group of individuals, you'll have exceptions to the rule.
Of course.
Right, you'll have, and let's not call them bad actors, because it's really just a difference in alignment of their priorities.
That's right.
Probably. I feel like people maybe have the overall view that private equity is acquisition and then separating it for the parts and maybe selling the parts off or something like that. Explain to us maybe how your experience has been different with private equity.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, so the model you're describing is kind of like the Charlie Sheen movie Wall Street, right?
Yes,
the
yes,
investment
yep.
bankers, and they hack everything up.
Yep.
And I'm sure that happens, right?
Sure.
That exists out in the marketplace, but for us, or for me, private equity is an opportunity to bring in some folks that have incredible skills in terms of finance structure and being able to recapitalize and reinvest in a business, right? So it allowed us to bolt on some additional product lines and some additional business units and Shoreline Vinyl Systems and Southampton Ironworks, later Hudson Fence, which is now our Fort Mill facility. That doesn't happen unless you're backed by a company that has the ability to lend you those resources. But then beyond that, our ownership team and prior ownership teams I've worked with in the past, they bring expertise. They either bring expertise in areas that the company needs complemented in, whether it's operations or commercial or supply chain or IT, but they also can bring in advisory, whether that comes from an outside board director or for folks that are inside the organization. So for me as a CEO, I get the opportunity to rely on about 500 years of experience just on my board.
Wow.
And leverage that, right? So if we have an issue, we have a challenge, we have an opportunity, I can leverage that, I can bring that into my decision making and then execute what I need to. So for a company out there that's considering a move or dancing with the idea of private equity, it's about finding the right partners.
Sure, absolutely.
And sometimes the people paying the top dollar are not the right partner for you. It's like hiring.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
When you interview at a job, you better be interviewing the person that's interviewing you because it's got to be a good match. That's the same thing with private equity.
Well, so what I'm hearing you say is, in a nutshell, it gives you access to resources you may not have had otherwise, whether it is human capital, whether it's financial capital, whether it's systems and processes. It's just giving you access to that. And maybe over the course of years, you could have found yourself in that situation, but gives you access to that at a greater speed.
It also provides a mirror, and sometimes people get a little freaked out by that mirror because, when you get an outside look at the company, and everybody that I've worked with in the private equity space, these folks are an order of magnitude smarter than anybody else I've ever met before. So they're really good. But they can bring a mirror to your business and say, yeah, we know you're proud of this, or we know you think this is profitable, but have you crunched these numbers? And sometimes that can be a little bit of a shock to the system that, we internally you can think that you're one way and, the real value is over here. And they can provide that outside view in without having to hire a bunch of consultants, without having to hire a bunch of folks from the outside and disrupt your team. You could get somebody to come in and bring that kind of honest to God, rubber meets the road truth.
Yeah. Well, in a trusted environment.
That's right.
Right. So a lot of times you hear guys bring advisors in that maybe they haven't vetted completely, or maybe they did and they understood things in a different way, and they realize halfway through the process, guys, this is not achieving the goal that we thought it would, for one reason or another. So it sounds like in this P&E or environment, they're vetting those professionals, they're bringing them to you as, hey, this is a trusted room of advisors.
That's right.
That you can trust when what they say is not for personal gain, it's really for the gain of the group as a whole.
Or even if it's an outside specialized resource, like a tax professional or an attorney or public relations or something along those lines, they've vetted them. They've used them with other portfolio companies, so they come to you without having to do a sales pitch, without having to, first time a consultant gets in, what's the first thing they do? They try to find the next job with you, right? So they're not doing that because they have a long-standing relationship. They know they've got the next job. It's refreshing to be able to work with really talented people who can come in and hit the ground running. And quite frankly, I think the owners in this room appreciate that kind of direct and fast-paced style. Absolutely.
Another thing it likely gives you access to is a room of trusted thought leaders too.
Absolutely.
It almost sounds like hive learning. Right, that what one group learns within the system, that they kind of disperse that information throughout the network, gives you access to maybe a greater speed of upgrade and a greater speed of learning.
We've certainly experienced that ourselves. So from the ERP systems to specific consultants that we've utilized, the ability to come in and then not only have those trusted professionals we talked about, but also have the experience working with those trusted professionals and say, hey, here's the data you want to give them, here's what you should ask for as an output, and then they can come in and again be as effective as they can.
Well, and they could probably help guide you through future growth, meaning, a lot of times when you hear about private equity, it's mergers, acquisitions, sometimes some divestitures, which you guys had some recent experience with.
Right.
But that group helps kind of guide you through that process, it sounds like.
They do, and they have access to a lot more of what's going on in the deal space.
Sure.
So one of the values of working with a good and well-connected PE company is they're seeing opportunities come across their desk all the time. They're vetting them for you, so you're not wasting your time as a leader or an owner vetting every company that comes through, but they're also just getting access to a larger cornucopia of opportunity, and then you get to pick what fits for your business in terms of geography or product differentiation or capabilities. It's a very much value-added service.
Well, and they've likely seen it before, right? They've likely seen similar models come through, and it's, really probably an acquisition you guys ought to be looking for is X, because we've seen something like this, something like you guys in the past, and this worked really well.
Right.
Whereas you're on your own, you're solo, you're really not sure what the right acquisition probably looks like. They all, in some rooms, they all look like great acquisitions.
That's right.
And it's probably narrowing that down to what you guys really need right now probably looks like this.
That's right. And you mentioned we recently had a divestiture.
Sure.
Sold off our extrusion business to Old Castle team, have a long-term agreement with them. So the same quality that we've always had, we'll be able to receive that from our plants that they now have possession of.
Nice.
But we have an opportunity here to really refocus our business on our distribution model, do what Eastern does really well. But it's the leadership within a PE space or the folks they bring in that can help make a deal like that make sense for both partners, right? So, they made an acquisition they like, we made a sale we like, and it allows us both to go forward. That's hard to do when you're not working in that space. You've got a lot of bigger questions and challenges that you've never dealt with that before.
Well, and you're a little bit closer to the situation, right? Sometimes you almost have to have a broader view to say, yes. I know, they would say, I know you think you know what you see right here, and that's valid. But if you're to step back a pace, this is actually better for the greater whole, is to maybe narrow the focus a little bit.
But what did Van Moore say in the keynote, right? He said there's 14,000 years of experience in this room.
That's right, yeah.
And I think he was light on that number, by the way. Seeing
Probably
some of the gray hair wandering around.
I was going to say, I was looking around my row going, I don't know, 20 years might be light on the average here.
That's right. But you've 14,000 years experience, but maybe not all the experience in the technical details of really growing to a larger company.
Sure.
And whether that's growth through investment in new equipment, investment in new locations, bolting on or adding on other capabilities, bringing other people into your company, it's good to bring in that experience of folks that you may not have that organically.
Sure.
Give you a viewpoint. You don't necessarily have to do it, but it gives you a viewpoint on what makes sense for your organization.
Well, and it gives you that alternate perspective too.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, because you're right in the middle of the organization. Sometimes you do need that outside perspective to say, have you thought about this? To reference back to what you'd said earlier is, I know these are the objectives. This is kind of where where we're headed. But have you thought about this? When had that advisor not been there, you likely may have just passed that opportunity on by.
I've found in my career having a sounding board, a trusted sounding board, is incredible. My favorite business tool is a whiteboard. So we can get on a whiteboard, or we can scribble this, and somebody grabs the marker, no, it should look like this. And having access to somebody like that, like you said, who has a motivation that's aligned with yours, who's invested in your organization, that's a huge advantage.
Well, and it probably lets you focus on the business.
Absolutely.
Rather than trying to take your attention part of the time away and look for these opportunities as well.
Absolutely.
How important do you think private equity has been to Eastern Wholesale's growth?
So from a couple standpoints, first is, we're with our second private equity partner. The ability to acquire the organizations we did, Shoreline, South Camden, and Hudson, allowed us to expand geographically. It allowed us to expand into newer markets, but it also allowed us to get that outside-in view of structure of the balance sheet and where your P&L is and what makes sense for your organization. And they've given us a chance to really bounce ideas off of, think about what our next growth is. I'm here, I joined Eastern because I see the runway that this organization now has. Yeah. And being able to have the team, Center Rock Capital is our current owners, being able to have that team and really pressure test some of these scenarios of what 2025, 2026, 2027 looks like, it's immensely valuable.
Well, and it sounds like it's kind of supercharged the growth capacity.
Absolutely
the growth ability.
Absolutely has. And it allows you, as an owner, right, you have an opportunity to work on one project, two projects at a time. It can get really tempting to work on 10 at a time, right? So having somebody to take the next step for you and vet out step one or two of every one of those lines and come back and say, here's what we found, right? As the CEO, I get to make the decision, but here's what we found around, this makes a little more sense, that may make a little less sense, this only makes sense if you bolt it on with this option. Like, that's a conversation I want to be having. It allows me to be strategic.
Well, and that's based on their group knowledge as a whole.
That's right.
That they've already seen situations similar to this. It's not every situation is entirely unique. So you also benefit just from that. Again, that experience.
Absolutely, and depending on which private equity company you partner with, it also depends on what additional resources they bring to the table.
Sure.
You could be working solely within the PE company, the Portco company, but you could also be working with board members that are outside industry experts.
Okay.
Somebody who's a CEO of a parallel company, not in your space, but they have the same view of the market you do. They have the same view of material economics as you do. So again, it's that chance to surround yourself with a council of learned people.
Nice.
It's pretty valuable.
I bet so. Now, you made a statement there that I think we ought to talk about for a second, because you said as CEO, it's your choice. There's another thought there that the private equity, and it probably again depends on the partner,
right,
but that the private equity takes a lot of that choice away, that they handcuff you in a certain way to say, hey, this is the direction we're taking. It sounds like, again, there's probably some of those out there, but those are more the exception than the rule.
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, they're bringing in capital. They're looking for a return on investment.
Sure.
PE exists in the space that we all grew up thinking that the stock market is you can put the money in and it gets a lot bigger. Well, PE now exists in a space where they're really driving additional beyond stock market value. They've come in, they've invested a large chunk of money. They do want to see a return on that money.
Of course.
So you better have better know your numbers. You better have your act together in terms of what you want to do. But then my experience has always been when you have your facts straight, you lead with conviction, that the opportunities are there.
So it sounds like more like macro management rather than micromanagement.
Totally.
I mean, there's still advisors, there's still that, but by and large, they're letting you execute on those objectives.
Yeah, the owner of our organization said to me not too long ago, he said, the second I make a decision for you, I own that decision and I own every other decision, and I'm not going to do that. Right? and really, that's every member of our board has expressed the same. We're not here to make decisions for you. You run the business. We're just going to give you perspective when you need it.
That has to be a tremendous resource to you.
Absolutely.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Guys, Eastern Wholesale, if you guys are really anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard, they likely already know about you. But if not, for the one or two people somewhere, Eastern Wholesale is somewhere you should look, especially if you value customer service, the white glove last mile distribution. Can't look much further than Eastern Wholesale. If someone were interested, how would they get in touch with Eastern Wholesale?
Well, it turns out we have a booth here at FenceTech.
Perfect.
Right, so they definitely should come over here.
Of course.
easternfence.com is our website if they don't get a chance to visit us here at FenceTech. And one of our talented professionals will reach out and we'll start having conversations.
I love it. Greg, thank you so much for making yourself available. Guys, I hope you guys got as much value out of that as I did. I know I've been sitting here seeing, from the outside looking in about all these private equity transactions going on, and you really don't know until you sit down and have a conversation with someone that really what the inner workings of that look like. So I appreciate you bringing that to us and letting us learn from that.
Well, it's been a fantastic opportunity. I'm thrilled to be here at FenceTech, but Joe, thanks for taking the time and letting us tell a little bit of our story.
Of course, anytime at all.
Awesome.
Guys, we're having live interviews. We're bringing live interviews to you throughout the week. We've got several more today. We've got a full day tomorrow and several on Friday to close things out. Keep your notifications turned on. Stay tuned in, and we'll see you next time. For now, Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors, and I'll see you next time.